2, 3. O, no to musimy jeszcze tylko poczekać, aż chłopcy nas wbiją na ogólnopolską antenę, czy gdzie tam to nas wbijają. O, to ja ten moment wykorzystam i powiem Państwu, że o 18:30
I will use that and
tutaj
will tell you that at
wszystkie spotkania
6:30 here, because
z
all
przodu
meetings were moved
wybranych,
to this
żeby było
room
więcej miejsca.
to have
Zapraszamy na
more
spotkanie z
space. So
zespołem
I would like to
studyjską,
invite you to
kostiumografką, która
a meeting with
pracowała z
Wiesława
Wajdą,
Starska,
z
who worked with Wajda
Kieślowskim, z
Kieślowski,
Agnieszką Holland.
Agnieszka Holland.
Myślę, że to też
I
może być
think
taka
that it
fajna
might also
opowieść
be
o
a
budowaniu
nice,
światów
interesting
w
discussion
szczegółach.
about the building of the
Także
worlds in
zapraszam,
details.
przyjdźcie. Lecimy?
Shall we?
Super.
Yes.
Dzień dobry, już prawie
Hello.
dobry wieczór.
Almost
Pracujemy
good evening, but
dziennie,
we're
cały dzień na
working
Film
bravely
Drodzy Państwo,
throughout the whole
mam
day
ogromną
in
przyjemność
Film Springoven. I have a
przedstawić
great
film
pleasure
Sonata,
to
który to film widzieliśmy wczoraj.
present to you
Jest z
the
nami
authors
reżyser i
of the film
scenarzysta
Sonata,
Bartosz Blaschke.
Bartosz Blaschke, who's
Brawa.
the director,
I producent liniowy Kamil
and
Janik.
the producer Kamil Janik.
Dzień dobry, dobry wieczór, w zależności od tego, kiedy nas Państwo
Good
będziecie
evening,
oglądać.
hello, good day, depending on when you will watch us.
Panowie
Of
są
course,
do
the
waszej
gentlemen are
dyspozycji,
at your
więc,
service, so
myślę, że mikrofon też mamy
I
w
think that
gotowości.
we also have the
Za
microphone
chwilkę,
ready,
będą jakieś
and
pytania,
if there
które
are
się zwróciły
any
wam po
questions
wczorajszej
which came to your heads
lub
after
wcześniej
yesterday's screening or
co do
before,
nas
I will
będziecie
address
pytań
you
zadać.
and
Ja
you
tak
will be able
sobie
to ask
myślałam
that
o
question.
tym,
I was
o co
thinking
was
about
zapytać
what I
pod
should
tym
ask
kątem,
you
co
from the
dla
point
nas
of
tutaj
view
na tegorocznych warsztatach jest najważniejsze.
of what's
Gdzieś tam
happening, what's most
modele
important
produkcji,
in
taki
those
kreatywny
workshops, the
producent, sprawdź
new model of
pieniądze,
production,
to
the
są rzeczy ważne,
creative
więc może
producer, the
zaczniemy
executive
od takich
producer,
największych wyzwań
where the money comes.
producentów,
So
jakie
let's
Sonata
start with the biggest challenges
wam
of
przyniosła.
producers. What were your biggest challenges with Sonata?
Kamil.
I will start then. It is so that I was responsible mainly for spending money. I would not want to responsible for acquiring money, because we had other producers responsible for that, Sylwek Banaszkiewicz. And I know a bit about getting money and how it worked. Bartek made this film as a beginner. It was his feature debut, so the funds that were acquired were mainly from the public funds. However, when I got this script, me or my company, to make this, to produce this script, we attempted that when all the money was collected. We knew the budget, we knew more or less how many shooting days we can allow, and basing on these assumptions, we start to plan our production. As far as I can remember, from the first day we knew that it's 28 shooting days, and finally, after a lot of trouble, this is how we've managed to pull it off. Until the last set of the picture of the shooting, these 28 days were not realistic for us, but throughout the whole filming process we tried to limit our production attempts and ambitions, our different creative ideas, and finally we've managed to keep to the number of days and stick to the budget. There was no possibility to get any more resources for that film. Bartek, do you want to add something? I was mainly responsible for directing, so I will not add much on my part. We knew what the budget was before the shooting started, several months before the set, so we still had a chance to correct the script. So on one hand, well, sometimes we could correct it, and sometimes we had to add certain things. I remember your face when you got the filming script, which was thicker by 10 pages. These pages arose from our cooperation with the actors. We had like table discussions or improvisations, and out of these improvisations, we got more interesting things that we would be sorry not to add. However, on the other, before that, we removed a lot. So at the end of the day, we got even. However, these easier movements, this limitation of scenes, of the motives, resulted from the fact that we knew that this budget will be smaller than we assumed initially. I don't want to talk in the name of the producers. I'm talking about my subjective impression. I think another a very helpful thing was a sample scene within the development budget we got from Pisfy, because we could see Michał Sikorski, and everybody who read that script, they knew I'm a beginner. I'm a script writer of daily TV shows. They weren't convinced that I will be able to tell this story in such a way that it will be coherent and that it could be compared to other movies, like world movies, which are of a different topic. And the way Michał played in the sample scene was a huge argument to take that risk and to give the resources to us. I think that there will be questions in a while. I want to stop at the script, talk more about the script. Tell me about the pros and cons of working on the true story with the protagonists that you have around, that you can visit, that are accompanying you. How did this process look like? I think that every project has its own rules, and even if I were to compare Sonata to the next film that I am developing, which is also based on true story, because that's a big difference. Sonata has been written and prepared for quite a long time. I made several meetings with people who were on the path of Grzegorz and his whole family since his birth. I even spoke to the doctor who delivered her. I had so many dialogues that I could absolutely make a series out of that, and I had plenty of things to choose from. Only one scene was invented by me totally, because I mean everyone was invented in a way, but each one was based on a strong inspiration. I invented this scene at the desk. It actually happened in the private life of his family, but that was after the shooting. Will you tell me which scene was that? Yeah, when he pushes his mother into the river. Of course, it happened on the set. Yes. So at the end of the day, what was the problem? Of course, the problem was for me that for a while I had this feeling that I have no movement. I have no movement space. I wanted to be faithful to the story, but I didn't want to lose my artistic freedom, and I didn't want to be the slave of like purely human dependencies or obligations. The family of Grzesiek told me the story, and what should I do with it? Throw it away or replace it or remake it into according to my own liking? It's an artistic thing, and thankfully all these stories were really very good. So I didn't have this. When I was working on the set, I didn't have such dramatic thoughts and such doubts, and I really enjoyed myself. And the actors also added a lot. The actors who met their protagonists, they lived in at their place.
bardzo konstruktywnie i na przykład bardzo dużo humoru włożyli.
They were very constructive and they put a lot of humor in that story, which
przyszła, może nie była aż tak
when it reached the actors, it wasn't so funny as it is currently.
Zapytam was o to, bo macie większe doświadczenie. Ja nie jestem na planie, nie jestem
I'm not,
w
you know, you
środku,
have more experience, so let me ask you, I'm not on the set. This model, when everybody's so close to the protagonist, is it something that happens more often right now? Or do you need a topic, or was it something extraordinary that happened to you because you had to get a lot of friendship and a lot of cordiality from them, because otherwise they wouldn't let you into the world?
Ja jestem w ogóle fanem tego typu historii.
I'm a fan of this kind of stories, to build a story on the facts, and the fact that we're building the story on the facts,
Odzorowując bohaterów, którzy żyją,
talking about the protagonists who are alive, it's even more interesting because we can confront with them this story. We have the possibility of
rozmawiać z nimi,
to talk to them. We have the possibility to be with them and draw inspiration, and that was a great experience. This was stressed also by many times by the actors, and this is what Bartek said, that meeting with these protagonists and spending one weekend with them was something incredible. They lived room to room. You know, they ate dinners together. They were taking walks together. Bartek really didn't want to have original protagonists to go to the set, but we could not keep an eye on them because they really wanted to take part in this. But when they saw Michał Sikorski, who behaves like Grzegorz, Łukasz could not believe that. He was walking around the set all the time and said, "I can see Grzegorz. How could he play that? It's ideally just like Grzegorz." And that was very moving. I know that they're really keeping their fingers crossed. They're really happy that this story was developed, and it also opened new possibilities for Grzegorz. Yes, it's very inspiring. I would also like to once again tackle a similar story, not in terms of topics, but to show a certain situation that happened in your real life. But it's a difficult material. Yes, because it all sounds like a fairy tale, like almost a homey situation. Yeah, it sounds like a fairy tale maybe, because we're all happy with the effect, we're satisfied with the effect, but also from our cooperation. Of course, it didn't have to be so. We were working, especially the actors. We had the feeling that it will be watched by Grzegorz, and we couldn't censor ourselves. We couldn't think how to do it to make them satisfied with this. We felt that in order to be strong, to have strength, it has to be transparent. It has to be honest. We didn't allow them to. Thankfully, they didn't interfere with the script. They communicated, for example, that what they liked and what they didn't like, but they didn't try. They didn't look for we were working as if we would work down the minefield. This is what Łukasz mentioned, that one false move and things will go wrong, the wrong way, because you can hurt a person like this. You might not want to hurt a person, and you will hurt them. You will never know that, and you never know that until the very end. Despite our goodwill, despite our good intentions, something bad might happen. And this screening, where the first screening at the new film, just after the correction, after the sound, the first showing only for them in the cinema, that was the most difficult screening in my life, because I didn't know how that will end. And thankfully it worked well. But these are several years of work with a feeling that you have somebody else's life, somebody else's fate, and you're responsible for that person. So on one hand, it's great. I really relate to what Kamil said, but on the other hand, it's an extremely difficult thing, because it's like work on a documentary. It's in terms of your responsibility. It does not differ. Yes, it also ends well, because your film had a very good reception. It got several awards, including the award of the public in Koszalin. I think these are the most honest information of what people think about this movie. How do you select a topic for the debut? Did it take a lot of time for you to decide to do this movie and not a different one? I must admit that I was looking, of course, I was writing scripts myself. I was looking for a topic for debut, but at some point I just let it go. I started to write because I liked it. I had a lot of writing, and I stopped feeling the need to go back to the set as a director, especially. It's not that I didn't have it, but Grzegorz appeared just by chance. I saw him when he played the Moonlight Sonata on YouTube, and I got interested and I started to read, because there was some first information about him, like the first information about him, because he came out of nowhere at that time. How many? It was 7 years ago. That's how long it takes to make a film. Yes, I mean, we waited long for the film, but it's been around for a year. So it's still several years. Maybe it's because it's debut. And I stumbled upon this story, and I was wondering for a very long time. I didn't know how it's gonna work. I was wondering if the world needs another movie about disability. Now I'm laughing at this fear, but that was what I was afraid of at that time. And I went to the festival of the Integration Festival in Koszalin. It's devoted to the topic of disability, and all the films that relate to that. And the atmosphere of that festival was so that I decided, well, I have to do that film. You shouldn't look, you shouldn't hesitate. Just sit down and do it. And I gave that topic to the producers, and they got initially instantly interested. And a week later, we started to talk about this film, and that's how it all started. Ladies and gentlemen, it's supposed to be a meeting for you, so that you can collect some more information and gather some more information. Get the microphone, and we have a question now. Can we ask for a microphone for the gentleman? Hello. When Bartosz was collecting yes. Hello. I wanted to ask Bartosz, when you were collecting the material for the movie, you were staying with the family and talking to these people. When did you decide that it's enough? That you've got everything that you need? After about half a year. I don't know. I don't know if this is the answer you were expecting, and from the point of view of mental, how did you understand that it's enough to create a movie? I was writing down these discussions hot, and when I decided I have 400 pages, I decided it's enough. Maybe I'll try to do something out of this, of the things that I have. And if it's not enough, I will meet them more. And I also had the feeling that there are no more people I need to meet with, but all the key people met me already. It's interesting, Bartek said once that he feels that he knows more about Grzegorz than his parents. Yes, there was a moment like that, but not Grzegorz as a human being, but about his problems that took place out of their house, because they learned a lot of things from me. They were really astonished that Grzegorz never told them, but I do have the whole package of information.
Słuchamy dalej.
We're listening on.
Bardzo prosimy tutaj z przodu.
I have two technical questions, if you can say it like that, because you've mentioned that was a debut, and there is a requirement from PiS that you have to have an artistic supervisor. Did you use money from PiS? Did you have such a supervisor or tutor? And if so, how did your cooperation work? I don't need some private details. That's not what I'm interested in. But what was your relation?
Tak, musiałem mieć opiekuna.
Yes, of course, I had to have a.
Był Adrian Panek.
I had Adrian Panek as my tutor because I've known Adrian for ages since we were students. It was a like a very friendly relation.
Adrian mnie wspierał swoim
Adrian helped me with his experience,
z którego parokrotnie skorzystałem.
which I used several
Nie miałem
times, but I didn't have
nie miałem takiej relacji.
I didn't have
Nie miałem opiekuna, który ma na koncie 14 filmów.
a tutor who had 14 films under his belt and he tells me exactly what I should do or not, and he's 50 years older than me.
Ale nawet gdyby tak
But
było,
even if it was so,
było mi tak z wielu tych
I think I would use those many of those I wouldn't use a lot of those remarks. I mean, I always work like that. It's my film. I never interpret things straight on. I listen to everything, but then I rework them through myself. So I process it through myself because the problem quite often is in a different place that people expect, and you have to look for the solution in a different place.
Dosyć złożony proces, ale
It's quite a complex process, but I think everybody who works on the film here in the room know that. This was a very nice cooperation with the tutor. It was not like a master and pupil relation. How did you collect the funds? I hope that it's not. I will tell you where the money comes from. I did not participate in the process of collecting the funds. Only I was only spending them. But the film was funded from the Polish Film Institute. It was funded from the Polish TV. 3 regional funds supported us: the Kraków Regional Fund, the Rzeszów and Lower Silesia Regional Fund. I know that at the stage of production it was still WFDIF, and the Poronin commune also supported us. What was the budget? I think about 4 million. We're talking about the budget. I was talking about the budget when we started, then it of course changed. It was about 4 million.
Prosimy tutaj.
I have a question concerning the debuting and the problems in collecting funds and number of shooting days. It's not always that there's a problem during the debut with that, but I was wondering that you need to agree to a lot of compromises. That's my thought about it, because there's not much money and you want to make the best film possible. I wanted to ask you about the compromises you have to take, Bartek, but also from the production point of view, because probably everybody pulls their own way, and I was wondering how it worked. Maybe not with the debut, just with the debut, but how do you deal with compromises you have to agree to during the production? Well, I had this feeling that after the shooting is that we didn't have a lot of compromise. We weren't forced, and they were not so painful, that we've managed to achieve what we expected, what we were actually assuming. As I've mentioned before, we knew what our budget was like. We knew before what we have at our disposal, and we tried to adapt to it. I also think that you have to be lucky about the people you work with, and the atmosphere on the set is very important. What I think was so that we tried to do it as effectively as possible,
jakoś tak razem
together, if possible.
Nie wiem, ciężko było zdobyć te
It was
pieniądze.
difficult to get the money. The debut, the situation of a beginner, somebody like me, so guy who's writing TV shows,
Nie pomagało to,
it did not help.
pieniądze
But
zdobyło,
when
to
we
jak
got
zaczęliśmy
finally
jakby,
the money,
to już nie miałem poczucia
then I didn't feel
wielkiego oddawania pola.
I didn't feel like I have to sort of
Nagrywamy,
give grounds to anybody. You said that there were some corrections of the script, so maybe one word about that.
Tak, cały wątek.
Yes.
Wątek wyleciał. Wątek biologicznej mamy.
There was one whole motive which we cancelled, the motive of the biological mother of Grzegorz, an incredible story. Well, it is marked there. It is marked in the film, and it happens so that some viewers do not really feel well about that because it was very, it was limited to the extreme. But it's such a crazy story that it's competitive against the main story, so we had to make some artistic decisions. And this motive was cancelled, the motive of the beginnings, where Grzegorz was being born. Małgosia was still appearing as a godmother because she was the friend of the real mother before the real mother died in a car accident. So this whole motive was removed. I then tried to explain the scenes whether she's a mother or not, and the only scene where it was explained straightforwardly, it was deleted in the editing. So some of the viewers are lost. But these are the things which arise from small budget, that you have to take certain decisions at the last moment. These are like lessons for the future.
Jeszcze Kamil o kompromisach.
Now, Kamil, about the compromises. When I got that film and I was engaged to work on that film, the budget was already closed.
Może dostaniemy jakieś pieniądze. Często jest tak, że na przykład zaczyna się zdjęcia, jak budżet jest domknięty. I taka sytuacja moim zdaniem, ja do kilku takich projektów.
I had several projects like that when the budget was not closed, and I would not want to do that anymore. Here we had a situation that this budget was already closed. We knew that there is no source where we could get the money for the debut, and that's all that we had. And that was a comfortable situation because we could plan. Of course, we did that during the pandemics, and several costs were added to that. Thankfully, the Polish Film Institute, they had the program which reimbursed additional costs related to COVID. We had a situation that Łukasz Simlat got sick with COVID, and there are scenes which we recorded twice. Once without him, and the second time with him. There was it was made the production more complicated. When we started, we knew already what we can count on, and that was a budget which was doable.
Mieliśmy na pełne 28 dni zdjęciowych i w obrębie tego staraliśmy się planować wszystkie nasze
We knew that we have 28 shooting days, and we tried to plan accordingly. Cameras, set design, costume design, everything. We planned this for concrete departments.
Mimo tych wszystkich problemów, które się działy po drodze, udało się.
And despite all the problems that we had on the way, we've managed to deliver it on time. Another important point where we have a relation with is the relation with the producers, because they're strongly engaged into this project financially and in different other ways. So these were not two different camps. That's why I do not have the feeling that I had to go into some compromise. That the producers would say no, that's it. We don't go anything else. We try to look for solutions, and I feel both we and the production side, Kamil and not only him, we're finally very satisfied. So it's a very important. It's a very important thing to play on the same team. Sometimes the talks are very difficult, but making this assumption is very important.
Tak, to wszystko. Tutaj od pani. Dobra.
Is that all?
Dzięki.
Thank you.
A czy możecie, zaraz panu oddam głos, a czy możecie w dwóch
Can
słowach
you,
jeszcze
in just
przede
2
wszystkim,
words, Bartek,
o budowaniu
tell us about the
ekipy,
building
bo
of the
tutaj
team,
jesteśmy w takim
because
gronie
we're
bardzo
in a
mieszanym.
very
Właściwie,
mixed
są przedstawiciele różnych,
crew here. That we have
wszystkich
representatives of all sorts of film industry. Sławomir Idziak is repeating
wielu lat.
for many, has been repeating for many years.
Enter
Enter creative teams, because this is most important. During the building of those of that team that was playing together, did you have some special decisions that you want to underline? Did something work especially well? All our decisions went very well, and I would like to make the next movie with exactly the same people when it comes to the crew. I had a break in filmmaking, in feature filmmaking, and I locked myself and I wrote for years. I lost touch with the people who are currently working in the industry, so I started to complete this from Tomek Sikora, post-production, with Tomek Augustyniak, because I did all my things with him, and then slowly, step by step, there are new people. I always had my own candidate. Anka Gorańska was a person who I wanted to work with me, because I worked with her as a makeup artist, but there were a number of people they were like suggested by the producers Kamil, and it was occurred to be a great crew, a great team, in every respect. I remember we needed a lift out of Lego bricks in the script. Grzesiek did that out of Lego bricks, and it was going up and down, and on the it was photographed from every side, and Łukasz Wochman, who was our props guy, I gave him these pictures early enough, and a day before we had the shooting, during the sort of get-together party. Łukasz came up to me and said, "Listen, I'll show you something." And he saw a film he made with he couldn't bring that, but he did that he found some guy in Warsaw, and this guy made this tower, and he did it perfectly well. He had to come up with it because Grzegorz did not explain how he did it. He did not remember that, but this guy was coming up with how to make it work exactly according to the description of Grzegorz. Some simple pictures, and I thought, if Łukasz did something like that, I cannot be worse than him. And he set the bar very, very high, and I have to really get on my afterburner. And it was the same with every member of the crew. Let's say we had this plaque we would put on the grave. On the next day, I learned that Ania Żak and Łukasz Wochman didn't sleep throughout the night. They were making it anew, so that would play well in those two details. When you have this atmosphere on the job, and everybody's fighting for this project and pours in their heart, then it is so that the last filming day comes, and I say, "Wow, I'm so sorry. It's so bad to part ways." Kamil, do you want to add something? Yes. Yes, it applies to me pretty strongly. The executive producer or the line producer is responsible for completing all this crew. I have this theory to build from the top, and usually in agreement with the director, because obviously the project is created only when we have the project, the director, and then we start to complete the rest. So we're thinking about the DOP. When I entered the project, the script was already in the project, so I could already start building from that. I come to Tomasz and say, Tomasz, who are you working with? With whom would you like to make this film? And then the whole camera department is done. The team has to know each other. The team has to cannot be with. I mean, we can't make a casting for every position. They are not actors. It's not such a complicated matter. The more important thing is cohesion. So we start with heads of departments, and then we engage people who are already on board and recommended by the head of such department. If it's impossible for schedule or money reasons, then we go back to the head of department and we ask about. Let's we say, sorry, we can't get that guy. Can you get somebody else because there's a problem? Can you recommend somebody else? And that's how we built this whole human set. And it was exactly the same here. Bartek, after reading the script and a month before we entered the set, he said, "Wow, we've got a great team." And I was grateful that he's so inspired by how people behave, what they want, and how they work. Yes, this is very important. I think the worst thing that can happen to you and me is that somebody on the crew will be working 100%, but will be working not 100%, but he will be evading control. We never had a situation like that. Quite the opposite. Everything was done 110%, and everybody was doing it by themselves. There was no.
To teraz prosimy tam na górze Pana o pytanie.
We didn't have to force anybody. Somebody on the top had a question. Referring to deleting the scenes, what did the editing look like? How many scenes didn't we see? And is the sequence we see in the film is faithful to the script? I would only say never. It's never like this. You never have the same sequence. But it's not changed much. It is changed a bit. You can see the script. It's available in the library of the Łódź Film School. Everybody can read it and compare it. On purpose, I submitted the version which went to the set so that you could see what went well, what didn't go, and how. About 40 minutes were deleted, but without serious loss. It's a good lesson for me as a scriptwriter that maybe not all scenes are needed. But we recorded all those scenes and they costed us money. These are the sort of conclusions of a beginner. We worked with Robert Piechnik, not looking at the script. Robert edits feature forms, but he's above all a documentalist. And I've never worked with Robert before. However, we had a test scene with Robert, and I knew that he's a guy that he should be editing this film, not only because of his skills and toolset, but also his human sensitivity. And this film requires that. He requires some sense. If I were editing this film would be shorter by 20 or 30 minutes, and it would be really bad. Robert was defending a lot of scenes from me. To hide to put down the scissors, to allow the scene, this character, this problem, to give out smell, so that the viewer, the audience could sense that. there's a lot of Robert as a human being in that editing. And that was a fantastic adventure to see how this film is taking shape at the hands of a person who joined our team as the last one after the shooting was done. But he loved it as his own baby, and it was his baby afterwards, of course. Initially, he just got like a pile of footage. For me, that was an incredible process.
To wszystko, tak?
Is that all?
Słuchamy dalej.
Let's hear another person.
Ktoś
No
jeszcze
more
chciał
questions.
było coś zapytać. To może Państwo się jeszcze Prosimy, oczywiście.
Do you think that the presence of the editor on the set would be useful or not? Of course, it sometimes, financially it does not work, but would you like to have an editor on the set to have the first editions, etc.? It's a difficult question. I think it depends. On one hand, it would be very useful for me. On the other hand, another person who would be telling you what you should do, what you should change, is not maybe the best solution. We are very well prepared. We had very precise sort of shooting script, but these materials allowed us also, the footage allowed us for certain liberty. So did you have the storyboard? Yes, we had a storyboard. I had my own, and the DOP had his own. But yes, we had two storyboards. So in the set we decided which solution is better. Usually it was the DOP's storyboard. I remember the scene which we did. I described that before the meeting, that we had a scene at the on the couch, improvised with the actors. We made a rehearsal. It takes about 2-3 minutes in film, and it was all on the couch. And we had this method that we asked everybody to leave us. I was left there only with the actors, and we invited Tomek Augustynek and everybody who would want to see that rehearsal, because they had something to decide upon. And Tomek used to, he would roll his eye and say, "Bartek, are you sure that viewers will bear with that?" So then he was taking this setting from the couch into the whole house, and we had it all around the house, and that's where the cinema happened. I had a different filming script. I was so concentrated on the actors that were it not for Tomek, the son of Peter. Yes, that's him. Tomasz Augustynek, the son of Piotr Augustynek. Yes, I worked with Piotr Augustynek. Piotr Augustynek is a great DOP and director. Thank you. There's one more question. I wanted to ask you about the cooperation with Michał Sikorski and creation of that role. It's a very specific way to play. It's very easy to blunder. I didn't feel any blunder there. It worked very well. How did you work that out, and what was your filter to feel whether it's true or not? How did that process run?
Myśmy mieli, zacznę może od tego, jak z Michałem pracowaliśmy, czy jak ja pracowałem z Michałem. Michał się bardzo wcześnie pojawił.
I worked with Michał from the very early stage, when this script was still in its beginnings, because I did have a feeling that it makes no sense to write this script without having an actor, because I did not believe that we'll find this actor, to be honest with you. I had an ambition to have Dustin Hoffman at least, or Daniel Day-Lewis, maybe at least Leonardo DiCaprio. This level of acting. and that he has to be 20, play the piano, and be like resemble Krzysztof and totally unknown at best. Yes. I didn't see that really. And yeah, exactly, these castings were showing that I am right. The script was waiting for further work, and that's where Michał came. Michał happened by chance because he was recommended to me. At some point I went to Wojtek Lanowicz. Wojtek, maybe you know something. Maybe I asked him, please find someone because I can't make this film. So he saw the really Grzesiek on YouTube and said, hey, I have something like that. Okay, I said, okay. And I didn't treat that seriously, really. Do you want to see him or not? He said. And I went to the exams, I saw Michał, I said, okay, but these were school exams. He was in the second year already, so it's incredible feeling of Wojtek. He had this innate ability, uncanny ability to see that in the other boy. I took him to the meeting. I said, listen, it's June. In August there's a casting. You have 2 months, at least a month, to get prepared. And I forgot about this, Michał. And we have a casting in September. It's almost at the end of it. Julka Popkiewicz, who's doing the casting, the director of casting, said, Bartek, there's a difficult situation because there's a boy sitting outside. He doesn't look like an actor. He must have heard somewhere that we're looking for the actor of a disabled person, and because he's disabled, I don't know what his disability is, and I don't know what to do. Should I invite him in or not? I said, okay, maybe you know him, maybe look outside. I look outside, and I didn't recognize the guys. I don't know the guy. Okay, let's take him. We'll manage the situation. We'll say thank you. I went to say hello, and he said his name is Michał. I didn't recognize him again because he didn't say his surname. And only when he was in front of the camera, I recognized him because he was Grzegorz. He made some incredible work over those 2 months. I remember that there was Małgosia Foremniak. Our eyes were bulging. We could not believe that this happens in reality. And it was from that moment, it was from strength to strength. We knew that he's working on that role. I knew that. I was thinking about him.
Ale że nie mamy w ogóle jeszcze pieniędzy a propos debiut, ale bardzo bym chciał, żeby się nie zestarzał.
I would really don't want him to grow old, because I wanted him not to grow old because he wants to play a 14-year-old for the half of the film, and he said okay. And then I heard that he was on diet throughout that time until the last day of shooting. For 3 years he's been on diet. He's still a very thin guy, but he had 10 kilograms less than he has right now because he believed that this film will be made. When I had this crisis that we will not make this film because I had different perturbations with that. And at the end of the day, I always thought we still have Michał, and I knew that he's on diet, and I said no, I can't do this. I can't leave it alone. I can't leave him like that. So coming back to your question. Michał was very well prepared. Michał made Grzegorz 1:1 before the rehearsals, during improvised rehearsals, where he could show everything outside. I was terrified because I didn't understand what he says. I didn't know if the viewer will bear with that, because Grzegorz talks in such a way that if you get to know him, you can understand a lot, but if you don't know him and the viewer does not have a chance to meet him, there is the problem with reading that. And Michał made him 1:1, and I had to, a week before the shooting, I had to ask him to make 2 steps back. The whole movie was working not with Michał himself, that I had to work with them. Of course, because I did have to control, I asked him to do that more or that less, but these were details. Together with Michał, we were fighting not to lose the viewer, not to lose the audience, so that the audience would know in every scene from the very outset what the protagonist wants or what they do not want. That the viewer would not run away from them, that the viewer would not close himself to that character, because this is the character that there is. I mean, it's difficult in reception, and it was very difficult. Michał was describing that in a script. We had a very concrete decisions made. What in this period of life of Grzegorz, how they would communicate, how they would behave, how he would behave, and I had to be on my guard, because Michał was playing, so he couldn't look at that. I had to see if that carries, if Grzegorz will, if that it will be discernible. This fear that the viewer will not feel sympathy for with the protagonist, that was the biggest fear and the biggest work. And some scenes were changed on the set. We knew that it scares people away, that there's too much aggression, or maybe our assumptions were wrong. So we had to be very careful. And however, I believe that we both knew what we care about, and we consequently tried to move in that direction.
Ostatni raz patrzę na Państwa.
I'm looking at you at the last. I will ask my last question. Majo?
Prosimy, oczywiście. Jak już wyszedłeś?
If you left your hole?
Jak już zacząłem pytanie.
If I started the question before, I would want to present. I tell you, I wanted to talk about the trailers, because the trailers, which sometimes scare away certain viewers, or they do not attract us as they should. And I had this problem with your film. When I saw the trailer of your film in Amazon, I really disliked the movie. It was not a trailer that would encourage me to see the movie. I got very early. I was afraid that this will be a movie where it will be a caricature. It will be very polished, very dramatic. Film about disability. I've seen the film, so if I saw the trailer again, I would have now a totally different approach, because I like the film a lot. But my problem was when I saw the trailer, very quickly it betrayed this dysfunction and the behavior of the protagonist, which scared me away. So when I was watching the film, it was introduced in such a slow way, and that living with the protagonist, I was happy with how he behaves, how he lives, and the trailer did it very quickly. It was momentarily, so the whole story got very flat in my head before I really watched it. So my question is, how it is with the trailers? Was the Amazon trailer your development, or was it done by somebody else? Were you forced to do the trailer like that? Because I know that quite often with trailers in Poland there is a problem, because poor comedies are sold by showing all the best jokes of the movies. For example, film like The Lure is called a beautiful musical, and then it doesn't sell because it's a horror about sirens. Yes, you're talking about the film The Lure, yes. And it was the same story with Sonata for me, and I'm shocked. After I saw the trailer, it was 4 out of 10. After watching the film, it was 8 out of 10. I'm really happy, and I really wanted to see the film. 8 out of 10. You were for 6 years and like 8 out of 10. Sorry, I mean, oh, it was a joke. It's an interesting topic, and I think it's a topic for a debate, to which you should invite sides which are decision makers, because me as a director, I had nothing to say. I'm not that critical about this trailer,
wręcz przeciwnie. Na początku
Quite
mi
the
się
opposite.
bardzo podobało.
I liked it a lot initially because we were afraid with Michał Sikorski that we will have a trailer that will even underline that it's a psychological drama. Now that I'm listening to what you say, I think you got this trailer as we didn't want it to be received, because we stopped making a film about a person with a disability. Michał stopped being the disabled person. It was for us as who's like bald like me, or has freckles, or is stuttering. They just have this sort of characteristic. So at some moment when we saw how this film works, we understood that this is also the strength of this film. That when we were making film with Grzegorz, the viewers much better received that film because we didn't whine over the disability. We weren't sort of trying to be overly sympathetic. We didn't want this trailer to do something that, and we heard that it doesn't, and now we feel that you saw that disability and this deficits of the protagonist, and you felt that it's another Polish heavy humorless cinema. But these are very subjective feelings, and
natomiast jest sens rozmawiać o tym, na ile reżyser ma wpływ, a na ile nie ma wpływu na zwiastun.
It is a question of what is your info to answer the question of who, if we had an impact on the trailer. We haven't had no influence, so they just sent it, they edited that and prepared it and sent it to us as a means of information only. Usually it is so that it is on the distributor's part to prepare the trailer. Usually it is so that the distributor can get something, and the distributor then does not have to take into account what the author has some remarks. So in Netflix productions it is also so that there's a separate department for promotion. In Hollywood there are separate people who are just doing the trailers. Yes, you can just enter the set and you have no impact on that. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not good. Depends on the project and depends on how the promotional campaign works. So people are happy when it goes well, people are unhappy when it goes unwell. So according to the review, to the research after the film was published, was that this trailer had some efficiency, but not much. But the biggest role was played by recommendations. There was a review several years ago. What sold the film? The poster, the trailer, and the people who talked about this.
Łącznie z tym, że jest tam na przykład muzyka kompletnie innego kompozytora niż tego, który napisał, tak jeszcze dopowiem. I ludzie idą myśląc...
Sometimes in a trailer you have the music of a totally different composer that is in a film, and people go to cinema to listen to that music, and it's totally different. We had the situation like this here. We had the music of Cortez in the trailer, and I had a discussion. She didn't say that she didn't see a film. She didn't have the occasion. I don't have any. She saw only the trailer. She started to ask me questions about that. It's good that I selected the music by Cortez for the film. Could I say something more about that? So it is misleading. I really was astonished, although I think that it worked very well. They made a research on the effectiveness of film posters in the US, and it occurred out of this research that the most effective posters are those when the actor is looking in the camera, they're looking in the eyes of the person who looks at the poster. And the difference was so significant that they decided that there's some sort of rule. I don't know if this is true, but they're trying to look for the ways to sell. It's always a Russian roulette. The Hollywood, from the from the beginning of time, the biggest problem is how to sell, because their realities is much more difficult, because they do not have national funds in Hollywood. It's not like if we don't sell, nobody dies. I'm not envious. They have to look for means to sell, and nobody found the recipe for success apart from the Marvel universe. Yeah, that sells. Well, there are some of those who who achieved the success. But Sonata worked very well. Ewa Puszczyńska, who was with us yesterday, once she told me a story that an American press says that people want to watch films which hugging films, and you made a hugging film before you that. No, not we didn't get ahead of the reality, because the war is only the effect of the times that we live. It will be even worse. It won't be better. And if it won't be war, there will be other calamities and complications. I have that too, and I had that for many years. The fact that we're starting to be in a bad situation, Marcin Król, a fantastic, unfortunately deceased already theoretician of idea, we were stupid, and he survived difficult moments in Polish history of 1968 and the martial law. He said that he was never afraid as he's afraid now, and he knows that we will all be hanging from the street lamps. And yes, unfortunately, we will all be hanging from the street lamps. It sounds horrible, but it's not only about the war in the East. It's about what's happening with our world, and we all feel that. There's not a person who thinks that it's gonna be fine, it's gonna pass. So we are standing on the verge of a chasm, and we don't know if we're gonna fall down or not. So I'm not. It's no wonder that the Americans see that we see the films. That just like if we're afraid, our grandma tells us a story, and we will stop being so afraid. And this is it. So that this is our role, so that we stop thinking that it's really that bad. Hi. Oh, Bartosz Blaschke, the optimist, and Kamil Janik. It was great to have you around. Thank you very much.